Hey guys, Nick here, and welcome to my spoiler review of the new DC film Wonder Woman that just hit theaters. And for anyone who follows me on social media or is subscribed to me on YouTube, you guys know I did post my spoiler-free review of Wonder Woman already. And if you guys haven't seen the movie, you guys can check that out. Otherwise, this is gonna be a full spoiler review, so I'm not gonna hold anything back. So you guys been warned. So like I said in my review, I loved Wonder Woman. I'm so happy that it's getting all the love that it's getting. And of course, as a DC fan, I'm super happy about that. Because I do think DC films, I love Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman. And again, Suicide Squad aside, I think the DCEU is they're just beautifully crafted stories and just visually beautiful movies. And I wish there wasn't so few of us who thought that. There are so many people who are just like, oh, that's just garbage, and the people are just thinking very simplistically about it. And I get it. Film is subjective, and not everyone's gonna like the same thing. I get that, but the DCEU is just there are those of us, of course, who love all of these movies or even love most of them. But at the same time, there are so many people who just will not stop bashing the DCEU or using Wonder Woman to bash the DCEU. And it's really frustrating when fans do that. And it's just like, why can't you just let someone enjoy what they want to enjoy? Why do you have to feel the need to pick on other people and bully people just because you feel superior for liking or not liking something? It's a stupid mentality. That's why I hate most fanboys. It's because most people I know who like Batman vs. Superman and Man of Steel or the DCU in general are female fans. And I think that has something to say about the fandom in general. But again, that aside, I do think that it's so great that we finally get a female-led and directed superhero movie in Wonder Woman. And just this movie, again, from start to finish, I loved every second of it. From the establishment of who Diana is and Themyscira in the beginning. And this movie, to me, has a lot of similar beats to Man of Steel. In that the way it starts out and the way they explain, the Amazons and the history of the Greek gods like Zeus and how Ares turned on the gods and Ares was killing everyone, and then Zeus created the God Killer to stop Ares, and he gave the God Killer to the Amazons. And then at the end of the movie, ultimately you find out, because we all, until the end of the movie, were led to believe that the God Killer sword is the God Killer. And then you find out that the God Killer is actually Wonder Woman, and that obviously taking it from the New 52 origin of Wonder Woman, that Diana is in fact the daughter of Zeus and Ares' brother, or Ares' sister. And I know some people have had some problems with that in the past because it takes away from the just women creating women origin of where you have to include a man into it. But at the same time, I think the movie did a really good job of explaining that, because he created Diana, he gave the Amazons Diana, or he helped sire a child in Diana to stop Ares. So he was giving them, hey, I want to give you a child so you can stop him, because I obviously can't. So I think the way they handled the origin in the movie, I thought really worked out. And I gotta say, I thought Ares was a really good villain. And unfortunately, I knew the twist coming from a mile away. And there's still a part of me that thought maybe they're gonna take it in a different direction. But for months, I've seen online and on the movie's Wikipedia page that the David Thewlis character or actor, I think that's how you say his name, the actor who played he was Remus in the Harry Potter films, and he turns out to be Ares. And his websites and links to the movie and stuff have said that for a while now. So it's hard, that twist wasn't really much of a twist for some of us, and it kind of sucks because it's supposed to be a surprise, but to me I'm well, I already kind of knew, so it's not much of a shocker. Which is fine, I guess, but still it does take away from the fact that I wanted to enjoy the reveal as its own reveal and not just be spoiled ahead of time. But that aside, I did enjoy the character, and I did enjoy the twist, even though I kind of saw it coming. And the final battle with Diana and Ares was great, and the action in this movie was directed phenomenally. And there were some scenes where they didn't necessarily need slow-mo, and there are some scenes that I thought were cut a little too quickly, but those are just really minor things. Those aren't issues on the movie as a whole. Again, there's just things because for the way I saw the movie from literally the front row of the theater. So I'm looking up, so those quick cuts can't really bothersome to me because I saw it in the front row. But again, that's just a really small gripe I had. That was just because of my own theater experience, not necessarily the movie experience. Again, actually, this movie was great. My two favorite scenes, hands down, were the fight with Ares and the No Man's Land scene in like the middle of the movie, where Diana finally like emerges into the battle as in her full armor, heading towards the Germans and inspiring the troops to keep pushing forward and all this stuff. And that moment to me summarizes kind of how I felt about the whole movie, because you see Diana and everyone's just kind of like letting this happen, and she's saying, you know what, I'm gonna push on, because you can see she thinks that they're not really doing anything, all these people are dying and being enslaved, and the soldiers aren't really doing anything about it. And you can see where she's coming from, because of course she's coming from a place of innocence and not really understanding the realities of the man's world, because she grew up on an island in the Themyscira. But I do find that scene to be so powerful. Of course, the action is great, but so emotionally powerful as well, because it's a very hopeful moment as well for the character, because she's standing with all this stuff coming at her, she's still pushing forward, and she doesn't know if she's gonna live or die. She's still pushing forward. She's gonna do her best to save as many lives as she can. And in that moment, as she pushes through the trenches and stuff like that, and the battle goes to the town, and she's fighting all those guys, and she ultimately takes out the sniper dude in the tower, and she emerges and she's greeting everyone on the ground, everyone's thanking her, and she's being there and it's kind of spending the time with all the people in that small town. And it gave that whole action sequence led to a nice moment for the moment to breathe, a nice moment for the movie to breathe. And it's just stuff like that I found so inspiring, and it almost kind of reminds me of the Battle of Smallville and Man of Steel, again, to compare the two. After the Battle of Smallville, you had at the end, you had the soldiers kind of come, Superman emerges from the rubble of the train that was smashed into that series, and they have their weapons focused on him, and then as he starts to come out, they lay him down because they realize that he's a hero. And I found that I found that really cool, because there is a bit of a parallel between the two movies. And obviously with this being an origin story as well for Diana, and I feel like Clark and Diana's origin, obviously it's different, but there are a lot of similarities between the two. So that there's thematically there, I can see so many parallels between the two movies, because there are aspects of the origins that obviously are very similar, as I just mentioned. And again, I just love that No Man's Land scene, and the score was almost perfect in that entire sequence. And to me, the only thing, and I mentioned this in my non-spoiler review, is that the use of the Wonder Woman theme, the da na 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 na, there, that one, that it wasn't always placed the best in the movie, especially in that No Man's Land sequence. Because while the score was great, and it was a great emotionally built score, that theme came in kind of awkward moments, and it came in towards the end of an action sequence. So it just felt really off. It should have started off with that, and then leading into the emotional, not as hardcore actiony kind of score that that most of the movie has. And again, don't get me wrong, I love the score. It was just the use of the theme, I think, could have been a little better. And that's my only somewhat big gripe of the movie. Because other than that, again, I love the performances, especially in Chris Pine. And I said this in my non-spoiler review. I think Chris Pine gave one of his best performances that he's ever given in a movie, at least from one of the movies of his that I've seen. And just see, because he is kind of the reason that Wonder Woman Diana wanted to come to man's world in the first place, because without him, she wouldn't have known about World War I. She wouldn't have been inspired to try to save humanity and try to stop Ares, and there would have been the world's better off because of Steve Trevor almost. He was her introduction into man's world. And even though he might not have necessarily believed her at first, the whole Ares thing, he wanted to help her, and she wanted to help him. And you can see there's a real mutual respect between the two of them. Even though, obviously, there's some far-fetched ideas, with the whole Ares and the Greek gods thing, and being, being brought to life by Zeus and all that stuff, that, sounds outlandish. At the end of the day, Steve, he trusted Diana, and in the end, when he said he loved her, I can say that might have been a little rushed, but at the same time, you do feel the bond between the two of them. And it's more than just him being a love interest. He's there, as a comrade, as an ally, and also as a love interest, but there's so much more to his character and his performance that I hope more people notice. Because I'm recording this review on Thursday, the June 1st, the same day that I did my non-spoiler review. So a lot of people haven't seen this movie yet, so I don't know the general audience's reactions to his character. But just from my own personal experience and watching him in the movie, I loved his portrayal of the character, and ultimately at the end of the movie when he sacrifices himself, and that moment when he's going into the plane, he's gonna let the plane explode. That to me was very reminiscent of Captain America: The First Avenger, when Steve's taking the plane, he's dive-bombing it into the ice, and I find it kind of funny because they're both Steve and they're both trying to end their respective world wars, and they both do, and they end up sacrificing themselves. Obviously, one lives and one dies, and I had pretty much throughout the entire marketing, this entire time of Wonder Woman being announced and being set from World War One. A lot of us, I think, expected that Steve Trevor would be killed in some capacity, because what would it have been to make Diana give up on humanity from what we see in Batman vs Superman? And that's another thing I want to bring up too that I briefly mentioned in my other review, is that looking at Diana in Batman vs Superman and looking at her in this, obviously she's she's a lot more world weary in Batman vs Superman, and you can just see how just like, she's obviously not as innocent as she used to be. Like, she's seeing the world as it is, and she also wants no part of it. And yeah, she's like an antiques collector now, and they established that in this movie as well. And I do love the thing in the beginning of the movie that we saw in one of the trailers as well, where she received the physical photo of her, Steve, and Steve's team from World War One that Bruce was tracking down in Batman vs Superman. And that's kind of like our first little look into Wonder Woman. I like that little moment, and then at the end, saying, like Bruce was saying, he finally found it, and then at the end of the movie, she was saying, thanks for bringing him back to me, and that was a really sweet thing. Like you see that like Bruce has an impact on her, whether he's physically there or not, and in a way, I'm almost kind of glad that the movie didn't set up Justice League, really, because like I think Wonder Woman, it's important for her movie to for her to stand on her own as her own hero, and especially with this being the first female-led and female-directed superhero movie and the first female superhero movie within an established cinematic universe, Elektra aside, or even Supergirl aside. I think it's important for them to not have her be reliant on, this is just a setup for Justice League. No, like, this is her story from start to finish. It literally is her story. Like, it begins, it's almost like the story does kind of become like a full circle, because it starts with her narration, it ends with her narration, kind of accepting herself as part of man's world now, and she's more hopeful for the future. And it's not like it doesn't end with like, we need to assemble a team, and here's Justice League 4 months, 5 months later, or whatever. Like, I'm glad that they didn't do that. I mean, as a fan, I kind of would have wanted them to set up Justice League in some capacity, but I also think they didn't need it. And especially for Wonder Woman, I think it's more important to not set up Justice League in that aspect, because of the way everything wraps up. And it's her story more so than anyone else's. I just really enjoyed what they did with her. I'm just trying to think of what else there is to talk about. Again, I loved everything on Themyscira. I wish we spent a little more time there. But kind of like with Krypton and Man of Steel, I wish, like, the way they established these two worlds, especially in this movie, I just wish we could see a little more of it. And that's why I was so shocked when they killed off Robin Wright's character, Antiope. I didn't even know that was how it was pronounced, to be honest. But I thought all the action and just seeing such a diverse group of women in Themyscira, and they hired a lot of athletes for the most part for the Amazonian roles. So that way, like, you see these like physically intimidating women, they're not just like, like just random actors they pulled off the street. They are like physically well-built women, and I really like that. And I really loved Colleen Nielsen as Hippolyta. She did a really great job, and while there wasn't much more to the character than what there is in the comics, I am glad that what we saw was just as good as it was. I really enjoyed seeing her and her dynamic with Diana, and her doing her best to protect Diana. And, ultimately she doesn't reveal to Diana that she's the daughter of Zeus. That's Ares himself who reveals that information. But I thought everything that was set up in Themyscira, and then Steve Trevor's reaction to everything in Themyscira was cool. And then you find out in this movie that the Amazonians are mortal. Like, Diana aside, that they aren't just immortal and they can like survive all this damage. But like, one thing that was kind of annoying is that like one bullet took down these two great Amazonian warriors. That kind of sucks, but at the same time, I mean, I get it for thematic reasons. You have to create some sort of tension and show that, again, the Amazons aren't perfect and they aren't immortal. And I was torn on that aspect because I thought it was too easy for them to be killed, but at the same time, I get why they killed them, to show that they're not. Again, it's not like they're these god-like beings. They're like almost like, not messengers of the gods, but like warriors of the gods. But they aren't gods themselves, except for Diana, who is a demigod. What else? Again, I love the action in this movie. I loved all the side characters in this movie, from Etta Candy to all the guys in Steve Trevor's troupe. I can't remember any of their names off the top of my head. I thought I was going to get all their names beforehand, but I didn't because I kind of forgot. But all the supporting cast I thought was great. And the villains. So now that this is a spoiler review, I can talk about the villains in more detail. Dr. Poison I thought was used okay. There are aspects of her that kind of reminded the actress, from what we saw, kind of reminded me of Feyor from Man of Steel a bit. Again, comparing the two. But ultimately, Dr. Poison didn't really do much. I mean, she was more like a secondary threat. And then Danny Huston's character, who was the German general or leader, whatever he was. I can't remember his character's name off the top of my head. I thought he was fine. He didn't really bring anything that was like really overwhelmingly great in terms of performance, but he was serviceable. I mean, he's not going to be the most memorable villain ever, and I think that Ares is the better villain, because Ares is going to show that like he doesn't necessarily have to even corrupt humanity. He can just like whisper in their ear and they're going to make their own decisions. Because Diana's whole thing of trying to stop Ares was she thinks that Ares has this control over the entire world. But at the end of the day, he's like, mankind's they've made their own decisions, and they are the way they are because that's what they've chosen to do. I've had somewhat of an influence here and there, but ultimately what their decisions are their own decisions, and I like that aspect of it, because he doesn't have direct influence in their lives, that they're making their own own choices. Sorry, like I was like stuttering there. And I just really liked how they used that aspect of Ares, and I thought Ares. The way he, like, in the final battle, at first when he's still wearing the suit and tie and stuff and still trying to fight Diana, I thought that was weird. Ultimately, when he does finally suit up in his full Ares garb, he looks great. And I think the actor did a really, really good job. And obviously for my fiance, Amy, who, I gave her a shout out in my non-spoiler review, because she's the one who got me these tickets in the first place as an early birthday present, because last night, it was made for 31st, and it wasn't my birthday, but today is my birthday. She got the movie tickets as an early birthday gift, as well as the two pops that you see behind me of Wonder Woman and Hippolyta. And I had so much fun watching that movie with her, and she really enjoyed it as well. And she liked the twist as Ares, because she didn't know what was going on, because like, she's not like me. She's not like a diehard superhero movie fan. Like, she'll watch these movies with me because she knows that I'm a fan of them. But she's not, like, she doesn't, like, talk about them in detail like I do, like, on social media and my Tumblr and on here and stuff. But, I'm just happy that the movie turned out the way it did, and it was directed so well. Patty Jenkins, seriously, great job. For someone who hasn't directed a movie in, like, 12 or 14 years or something like that, because the last movie she directed was that Charlize Theron movie, Monster, which got Charlize Theron an Oscar nomination or an Oscar win, something along those lines. Patty Jenkins did an amazing job with this movie. And I'm so happy that it's doing as well as it is critically, and financially it's probably going to do amazing. It's not even Thursday night yet, so I don't even know what the box office numbers are going to look like for this movie. But I have a feeling that this movie is going to crush at the box office, especially because so many women are going to want to see this movie too. Because especially at the screening I saw last night, there are so many women and young girls dressed up in Wonder Woman like outfits and costumes and stuff, and it's like it shows the type of impact that a female superhero has on the world, and it's such an important movie for not only them but just for everyone in general, because like Wonder Woman is a hero that anyone can look up to. If you're a woman or a man or a trans, no matter what kind of person you are, you can find something to look up to in Wonder Woman. I think that's such a great message to say and to promote in this movie, with this message being like all about love and passion and peace. And like the way this movie promotes, it's such a hopeful message. I think it ended really well. And I think its message was, to me, very reminiscent of the message of Batman vs. Superman, that, like, yeah, men are still good. Yeah, we fight, we kill, and betray one another. When I'm quoting that speech from Bruce Wayne at the end of Batman vs. Superman, but we can rebuild, we can do better, we have to. I feel like that message is very similar to this message of this movie, that, like, that despite all of the horrors of the world, you can still find goodness in it, and fight for love and peace. And I think those are just great qualities to strive towards, and I love this movie so much, and I could talk about it all day. I know you guys probably don't have the time or even want to watch me for that long, because I've already been talking for almost 20 minutes, but I'm probably gonna start wrapping things up here in a second. But just to sum up my thoughts again, I thought this movie was great. All the action beats and the humor worked great in this movie. It wasn't like bash you over the head humor. It was just subtle, nice little humor to like in between the action packed sequences, and I love the innocence of Diana in this movie, and Gal Gadot did an amazing job in this movie. Like I feel like I haven't mentioned that enough, but Gal Gadot, she does an amazing job as Diana and as Wonder Woman, of course. I can't wait for her performance in Justice League. Granted, it's not solely her film, but I'm just so happy to have such a great Wonder Woman film and character in the DCEU. So I think with that being said, that's going to be it for me. So what did you guys think of Wonder Woman? What were your guys' favorite moments in it? Send your thoughts in the comment section below. Give this video a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button for all the other content on my channel. And again, for those of you who stuck through this review and who haven't seen the movie, you guys can check out my non-spoiler review as well if you guys want to check that one out. Or any of my other videos on my channel for all the TV shows I've reviewed this year between Supergirl, The Flash, Arrow, and Legends of Tomorrow. Or even some of the Netflix shows like The 13 Reasons Why and Luke Cage and all that stuff. Those are all up on my channel as well. Thank you guys for watching, and until next time, have a good one.